Okay, well, welcome to everyone to this press conference on behalf of a number of organisations whose logos you see there, and there. The key point of this press conference is to release certain information which Sierra Club have obtained regarding Cameco's mines, and John Bennett, Executive Director, and Christine Elwell, who's been the lead author of this report, working on international environmental issues for Sierra Club, will present on that about 5 minutes each. After that, we'll have responses from two of the people who are most impacted by this. Kirstin Scansen is from the Ronge, and Dale Smith is from Pinehouse, and they will give us a northern perspective. So, over to you, John.
Well, I'll just start off by saying a few words about Sierra Club Canada. It's a national environmental organization with membership right across the country in all the provinces and territories. And we definitely have a significant number of members in Saskatchewan. I want to thank our partners for inviting us to come and helping us organize this event. We really believe in working with people directly and not coming out of nowhere and imposing our views. So, and this has been a collaborative effort from the beginning. We've been talking to several groups in Saskatchewan since the early spring to prepare this report and prepare to come and present to the CNSC hearings tomorrow in Ronge. We believe that all industrial operations should be done in a sustainable way, and that there should not have to be a trade-off between industrial development and human health or environmental health. And when we encounter situations like we have in Northern Saskatchewan, in which human health and environment is not being given full consideration and is being allowed to be degraded by operations of uranium mines, we felt it was important to come to Saskatchewan and make a presentation. In the process of preparing our submission, we discovered significant information about the amount of pollution that's been allowed to take place and without any enforcement from either the Saskatchewan government, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, or the federal government. And we are going to be asking the hearing tomorrow that there be an environmental assessment impact before any decision is made about granting further licenses to operate, especially to expand production. And we'd also like to have an explanation from the provincial government or the federal government as to why this pollution has been allowed to take place without any enforcement, or even the government doing its job to call attention to it. Now, they did post this information in public places, but obscure public places. So to discuss the details of the report, I'm going to hand over to Christine Elwell.
Thank you. Good morning. We do have copies of our report available to you, and I would invite you to have a careful look. As John said, we didn't start out looking for these crazy numbers. 5,000% increases in cadmium, 1,000% increases in uranium. But we stumbled upon them when we were preparing our submissions. And as John says, these reports are public reports. Often they're in annual reports, 5-year state of environment reports. We also checked this against the National Pollution Release Inventory. So the data's there. What this report does is try to put it all together so the public can have a real understanding of what's going on. Cameco's seeking a 30% increase in production at each of the 3 mines. That's Key Lake, MacArthur, and Rabbit. Yet already we're showing huge, extraordinary releases of both air and water emissions. And I would direct you to Table 3 of our report, which basically tries to outline in a very easy, understandable way these crazy numbers that we're looking at. For example, at Key Lake, out of the Yellow Cake stack, the air emissions out of that shows just in the last year a 400% increase in uranium emissions. And for lead, 394% increase. Sadly, I can't tell you what the numbers are for mercury or cadmium because the Saskatchewan Ministry of Environment did not require testing of that, even though there are regulations that set out certain limits. And we've put those regulations, both air and water, into easy defined tables, and you'll see that in the report. And we identify the substance, where it's regulated, if it is regulated, and where you can find that information out. So basically our process was to take a number where it was made available, compare it to the standard, and do a simple percentage calculation. It's not rocket science, but the numbers just jumped out at us. And the commission, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, cannot approve these expansion licenses unless they're ensured that there's environmental protection and that Cameco is operating in accordance with Canada's international obligations, which are many. And we've outlined a long list of commitments the Canadian government's made not only to its Arctic Council partners, but also to the United Nations and other around the world. So we've outlined those international obligations for you. Sadly, even where there were standards, Cameco was not required to report. For example, at the Key Lake Stat emission, we were told by Ministry of Environment officials, oh, we don't need to ask them to test for mercury. Mercury's not an issue here. Yet we've uncovered reports that show fish consumption advisories for mercury around the Lake Athabasca area, including where the Cameco mines are. So to say there's no concern about mercury flies in the face of the evidence that is out there. So, and also, so if you have a standard, we show huge increases. Unfortunately, we also show where there's no standards. There is no standard to protect against uranium and cadmium in groundwater. Groundwater is a huge source of water, not only for people in the north, but also if you look at the water currents, it also feeds into the Churchill River that goes south. It also feeds into the Mackenzie River, which goes north. So, as John says, we're not getting the balance right between responsible resource development and environmental protection. The standards that exist are exceeded. Where there's standards, they're not asked to comply or report, and we found many cases where there's no standards at all. This is not the appropriate balance. We invite you to look at our report and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kirstin. Have you received copies of the report? Yes.
It's online as well. I think I have a
It's
copy.
online,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Kirstin, are you next?
Sure.
Hello everybody, my name is Kirstin Scansen. I come from Ronge. I'm a member of the Ronge Indian Band. And given the alarming statistics that came out of the Sierra Club report, I'm going to talk about the political and social impacts of uranium mining on the Nahido and Bennett peoples of Northern Saskatchewan. Given that uranium mining in Saskatchewan exists within a larger structure of colonialism, there are very clear harm done to treaty rights and human rights of Indigenous peoples in Northern Saskatchewan. Given the lack of baseline health statistics on the workers of the uranium mines in Northern Saskatchewan, and given the pollution concerns, the mercury, the cadmium, arsenic, uranium, and general radiation, we see that there are effects to the water, to the food systems, and to the food sovereignty of Northern peoples, including the human right to clean water. Now, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission will often use language that speaks to the reduction of human rights, the reduction of impact on human rights and Indigenous rights. but they won't ever, when questioned, be able to say that they can completely eliminate the effects on treaty rights of these mines. And they may go so far as to claim that they are benevolent because they allow some Indigenous peoples to maintain their trap lines close to these carcinogenic mines. But as we know, that does not indicate true benevolence. For the CNSC, it appears that consultation only goes so far as listening to Indigenous peoples. A veto is never allowed or respected. I'd like to highlight the recent problematic approval of the Matoush project, where the CNSC acknowledged the jurisdictional complexities between the James Bay Cree and the Quebec government, and yet proceeded to allow the licensing in any case. And I'd also like to highlight that there's a growing movement of people who are becoming increasingly frustrated with the realities of environmental pollution downstream from the mines. The impact, as the report outlines, the impact on the Arctic environment, as well as the global nuclear connections to things like depleted uranium, nuclear meltdowns of the kind in Fukushima, as well as general increase of radioactivity in the environment overall. So what we're seeing is a growing group of Northerners who are frustrated in educating others on what's going on. And we'll see more of that in the hearings in the Ronge today and tomorrow as well. Thank you.
Coming from a community closest to the mines, it's hard to hear stuff like this. When last summer I took my children to pick blueberries within the mine site, I could see it, the south. And to hear information, how do I process this information and make it a reality, because it's impacting the North now. Not just some real information. Where's the reality? With reports, nuclear waste dump sites, mines, the whole community, all of us Northerners need real information from trustworthy sources, so we could make a well-informed, free, prior decisions for the future for everyone. And to hear stuff like this and process it, and I'm a parent, I'm a father, I'm appalled that it's hard to put it into words and expect people that we voted in, that are voted in, and then we just want the leaders to acknowledge the reality of what is happening now for the future of everybody who's going to come to this province, to this country, because they want what we have. The water, the land, it's real, it is free, but what is happening here? And how do we tell the story and say that everything's okay here when stuff is pushed aside? I struggle with that. That's why I'm here, because I want to seek the truth. I want to find it, because I want to make decisions that are right and honest for everyone.